I'm Jim Harkness, and I'm the president of IATP, and we just completed a really interesting workshop on grocery cooperatives here in Beijing. We organized it at the request of some Chinese partners who were working with farmers and in one case had organized a CSA farm and were really interested in making the connection with consumers, and some of them had spent time in the US and were curious about this model. For me, one of the really interesting things about the workshop was the developing of sort of mock business plans for CSAs for 4 different cities in China. It was an exercise we did on the last day, and through that process people really were hashing out some of the really basic principles behind cooperation. In my group, we started out saying, well, you know, our mission is to provide really high quality, safe food, because in China there are just tremendous concerns about things like pesticide residues and other problems in food. And so at the same time we were saying, well, what kind of membership do we want to serve? And we really wanted it to be very broad. We had retirees on fixed income, we had students, and we had people in the middle class. And when it came to setting the membership fee, at first somebody suggested something relatively low, and then a gentleman who's very familiar with agricultural production said, no, it's going to have to be 500 renminbi, which is about $90, because there's really very little way to, or there's really only one way to be absolutely sure that we have safe food, and that's not to go for some sort of official certification system, because they can't always be trusted. It's to sign a contract with the farm before the growing season and then monitor throughout the season to make sure that we have the food quality, and that's going to require a lot of startup funds. And so immediately the co-op became, you know, expensive, and the student and the retiree were saying, well, we're not going to be able to afford to be members if that's the case. So, you know, issues that we see playing out in co-ops in other parts of the world, you know, are we serving low-income people and trying to provide them with cheap food at a good price, or are we primarily trying to promote a good relationship with farmers and provide them with fair prices and go, you know, mostly organic? Those things were being played out really before our eyes. In the sort of crucible of organic principles, and people had, of course, coming out of that, had all sorts of questions for people from Taiwan and Lindy Bannister from the U.S., somebody from the Park Slope Co-op who was also there, about, you know, how do we work these things out? You know, who gets to vote? What about financing? How does that work? It was just a really fascinating experience. For me, a lot of the interesting side conversations were also just as valuable as what we were learning about co-ops, because we had people participating from all over the country, and we were able to see that this isn't just something that a few people in Beijing are concerned about, and it's not just about the interests of consumers in safe food. You know, people are also concerned about things like the heritage of China's agricultural you know, seeds and germplasm and animal breeds. There were people from Henan province, which is the biggest agricultural province in China and has the largest population with over 100 million people. They're very concerned about GMOs. They were saying, is there some way that we could, as an NGO, organize people to go and do testing of rice and corn and other crops, because the government has now approved test plots of some of GMOs, versions of some of those plants, and Henan province is where some of the earliest varieties of rice and other food crops come from. So we're terribly concerned about contamination. So people were really coming with a whole variety of different concerns, and it was exciting to see that combination of the principled concerns about biodiversity and social justice combined with really wanting good food, which is sort of, you know, the original starting point of co-ops in the United States.